We can get this meeting started. All right, first item of business is the minutes. Everybody has just look at the minutes from the last couple of meetings.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes.
All right. Any questions, omissions, additions to those minutes? All right. The next one, we had a couple of committee appointments and updates. Clerk?
So after these appointments today, our boards are actually looking better. We only have 5 boards currently that have vacancies on them.
That's great. All right. I don't see anybody here. Bruce. Oh, there's Bruce. Bruce, he's the first one on the cemetery board.
Did three, yeah.
All right. Okay. So I move Bruce. Angel's not here. Diane Strauss not here. James Childs is not. Michael? That's Michael. Okay, Michael. All right, we'll start. Do you guys have anything to say about your appointments, why you want to serve on the boards? I want to say it, just want both at the same time.
Sure.
So Bruce for the cemetery board?
I'm Bruce, and I've applied for the position of the cemetery board. I was born in St. Joe, raised in Benton Harbor. I've got grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-uncles buried at Crystal Springs, and I have a uncle who was killed in Vietnam on the cross, and I've maintained his headstone for many years. A couple of years ago, I was just curious as to actually how many men and women were buried on the cross, and nobody seemed to have an answer. And unfortunately, the records are lost out at the cemetery. And so my wife and I began a project to identify each veteran buried out there. I was unable to serve, so I do my part volunteering at veterans' homes and supporting veterans organizations and so forth. So as we've been working on this, we want to be able to tell the story of each one of these people. The cross was designed for 360 graves. There are close to that there, But what we've identified is about 42 men or women that are buried there without a headstone. And while that's a bigger, longer term project, the graves we can identify and so forth, we're doing all the research to be able to put together this list. And once that list is done, I've also designed a layout of the cross with each grave marked and the initials of the person buried there. Our goal is to give that to the Benton Harbor Library, the office out there, so that people, when they do visit, could try to identify where their loved one is buried. And I also participate in a Benton Harbor St. Joe Memories Facebook group, and you read all kinds of comments. And there were a lot of people complaining, although most of them don't live in Benton Harbor anymore, complaining about the condition of the cemetery. My philosophy has always been, if you're going to complain, you also should be doing something about it. So in addition to this research, this year, Memorial Day, the grass on the cross was a foot deep. And so my wife and I hired a local landscaping service to go trim around each of the graves and to mow that whole area. And we paid that out of our pocket. And then noticed the flags were not fresh. They were tattered and torn. And so we have purchased flags and replaced the 3 that are out there. And most recently, we did have solar lights attached to the flagpoles to try to provide some lighting. 50 years ago, the cemetery sexton would go out each morning, raise the flag, and at night he'd lower the flag, so there's no power, no lighting. It's not the best answer to it, but we paid for that as well. And it just led me to see what else I could do to help. And by attending some of the cemetery board meetings, I understand that the sea management team wants out, and there's some question about whether people that are purchasing new grave sites are receiving information as to the rules and how to decorate or not decorate and so forth. And so my background is business. I've also served on many volunteer or heritage organizations, and I have designed forms and documents and things like that. And I thought maybe Benton Harbor and the cemetery board could use some help in updating what is currently out there. And so here I am.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Mr. Buckwright. Buckwright?
Butger-ite.
Buckwright at the high school, teacher.
Leslie.
Yeah.
He was an uncle.
Okay. Anyway, I see on the application that you've been attending board meetings already. Right?
Mhm.
So it's good. It's good. So pushing forward, and you've already been doing your research. So I think you'd be a good fit for this. This is the last. I think it would be a good fit. It's like you've already been doing research and work, checking things out. That's just what we need at the cemetery. We need all the help we can get. Get our support on this.
Sound like a perfect candidate to me.
Thank you. I will say I drove through before I came here today, and
What you think?
it has improved over the past several months with how the grass is being cared for. You need to get that chipper because there are some
Yes.
large branches out there that
Just-
are broken and laying there, but I understand everything is a time thing.
We had a demonstration today.
Okay, okay. It'll come in handy with a good chainsaw. So, yes, if you so approve, I'd be happy to serve.
Thank you.
So, thank you. We'll move this appointment to the full body and it'll be voted on at our next commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Davis Yates.
Good evening. All right. Well, my name is Michael Davis Yates. I am originally from Benton Harbor, graduated in the year 2000. My mom was a teacher, Miss Wilma Davis Yates. She's no longer with us. I went to church with Miss Warren at Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. And my story is this. I left in 2000 to go to college, graduated from Grand Valley State, moved to Grand Rapids, went to Kendall College of Art and Design. And from there, I decided to start a career on my first degree out in Las Vegas, stayed there for 2 years, moved to Portland, Oregon, and continued for 13 years. And during the pandemic, my wife and I had a trip to Benton Harbor and realized that we could do a lot better for ourselves maybe here than out west. So last year, April 21st of 2021, we made our way back to Benton Harbor. She's originally from California. We had a baby in December, and I started working for Cornerstone Alliance in January. Since I've been back, I've seen tons of change. I've come back regularly over my time away, and I've always seen new things happening, and it's been an inspiration. Being out in Portland, Oregon, where things got really quick as far as progress made with, questionable hands making things move really fast. I realized that at home I might be helpful if I can learn as much as I can, put myself into effect in any way that I can, and be a helping member of this citizenry. So that's exactly why I'm here today. I don't have all the answers when it comes to Brownfield, but since January, I've learned a ton, and I'm going to keep learning more, and hopefully I can help serve you.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask if you have any questions of me. That would be, I'm not very good at talking about myself. So.
You answered a lot of questions. You said you had a 13-year tenure doing what?
Oh, so in Portland, I started out working. My first degree was advertising and graphic design. So in Portland, I was working for a company that built tattoo machines, doing their graphic design, web layout, just e-commerce, everything. From there, I started my own businesses, building speakers, working on websites to do that stuff. And over time, I built that into a portfolio to start working for a company called Barefoot Sound, which is where I spent most of my time. They make studio monitor speakers, so high-end special speakers for music studios. And that was kind of a dream job. I worked from the base up as a technician, building amplifiers, became a team lead immediately. After that, I became the operations manager within 2.5 years. And then the pandemic hit, and we decided that we weren't going to stay in Portland. So, yeah.
Any questions?
Questions.
Go ahead,
Thank
sir.
you, Madam Chair. So you're working at Cornerstone Alliance now?
Yep, I am the business development coordinator, and in that role, I'm a general catch-all of help for our team.
And
And
you
yeah,
mentioned it's the ribbon cutting.
exactly, yep, at the dock.
The dock, yeah. So, clerk, this is last position. So we have 9. It's good then, fill this position, and you're already working in the city, and you wanted to come back to Benton.
Yes, definitely.
You see something.
I definitely want to be a part of this progress, because there's a ton of changes being made here, and a lot of it is great stuff. We just need more of it, and we need to, watch it prosper.
So you bring
make sure it goes in the right
ideas and your creativity to this board. We got some good people on that board. Commissioner Adams back there that's served a long time on the board. So, yeah, I think it'd be a good fit.
Well, I love your story because it's similar to mine. I came back in 18. So I love to hear people coming back and they want to give to the community. And you'll also serve with me. I'm on the Brownfield as well.
Mm-hmm.
So So we get one consensus to move this appointment forward. So again, at our next commission meeting, this appointment will be voted upon.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Yates.
I admired the young man's story, so
Yeah.
he doesn't even look that old.
Great
Story,
story.
Turning 40 on Monday.
praise God.
All right, none of the other appointments are here. We'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the renaming of Broadway Park to June Woods Park. And that, Mr. Trenton Bowles will talk about that.
Commissioner and Commissioners, do you guys need the bio again, or?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, it's here.
All those people in the audience.
There's
Is it in their package?
Is it in the audience?
Yeah, right here, here's the package, right here.
That's in the last 3 or 4 pages.
It's in that package. Go ahead.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be in front of you guys again. Here I have Mr. Brian Carroll.
Dr. Brian Carroll.
Dr. Brian Carroll can you tell them where you're from, sir?
Yeah, I'm the archivist and historian for the Israelite House of David. I live in Benton Harbor on Britton Avenue, and I've been a resident of the town for 2 years, and enjoy being part of the local history and culture that's here in Benton Harbor.
So earlier this year, last year we found out the history of a young, well, not a young gentleman, ancestor of Benton Harbor. He was a former slave. He escaped slavery when a slave master died. And he moved to Benton Harbor, and he owned 2 businesses. And he was responsible for planting, I forgot how many.
He had a tree nursery business and was responsible for planting ornamental trees all over downtown Benton Harbor, but particular Broadway, in particular Broadway, yeah.
And the study showed they were maple trees. The study shows that they were maple trees, and he stayed on Colfax, and he was one of the first, I'm not going to say first settlers, but he was one of the early settlers. Often when you hear about Benton Harbor history, you hear about the Mortons, and you hear about the Clocks, and you hear about Stern Bronson. Where African Americans were here, the story is often told we came on the flats and the Great Migration. Per research, we were here before the Great Migration. And we are coming to you guys because this was a pillar. And if you want to give more, can you give more about him?
Yeah, I just got a quick little thing I'll go off of here. So I have a PhD in American history. I've been a museum director. I've been a historian, archivist, and a tenured university and college professor throughout my career. And I'm now currently here working for the House of David. So, and I've been involved in museums and historical preservation for 25 years, give or take a few. So, so life of Junius Brutus Woods, 1805 to 1908, stands in for the experience of thousands of enslaved African Americans who fled slavery and sought a better life here in the upper Midwest. After living half his life as someone else's property in Tennessee, he fled slavery in the middle of a dangerous civil war at great peril to himself and made his way northward and wound up in Benton Harbor. People like Junius Woods knew the true meaning of the lines of the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Junius, like others, made himself free, as Trenton pointed out. He pursued his dreams, eventually becoming an entrepreneur and a business owner here in the Twin Cities. He was well known and popular with both Black and white members of the community and was an integral part of Benton Harbor's early African-American community at the Flats. He was probably in Benton Harbor by 1865, 1866. He was a founding member of the Second Baptist Church and was a veteran of 4 wars: the War of 1812, the Black Hawk War in 1832, the U.S.-Mexican War in the 1840s, and the Civil War. Although he had little choice, being an enslaved servant to his masters, who were Army officers. Junius, like many others, came to Southwest Michigan and enjoyed the blessings of freedom here and made a life here. He was part of something. He was part of a historic early African-American community here in Benton Harbor, and he's worth commemorating. I wholly support the motion to rename a park after Mr. Woods.
And that's what we're asking. We went to the Public Safety Committee. We spoke individually with several city commissioners. We've hosted virtual town halls, virtual discussions. And engaging the community on who June Woods was and his vital role in Benton Harbor history. The sad thing is, it shouldn't have took last year for us to know about June Woods. I didn't even learn about June Woods in school. And we want to make this a pivotal part in the Benton Harbor history. If you look up back in the 1960s, they did a story in the Herald Palladium where they talked about some of the trees are still, I think at that time they said 60, I haven't counted, I counted 20, are still standing. And we are asking the city commission and giving Mr. June Woods the honor and respect that he deserves. He's buried right at Crystal Springs with no tombstone as we speak. And we want us to rename that park as a memorial park to him. It would still be like we call Riverview Park, Charles Yarborough Park. It would still be known as Broadway Park. But June Woods Memorial Park, my organization would up the cost for a board with information about him and a tombstone there, letting the community know from generations from now about who this pillar was in this community.
I have a question about placement. Where are you thinking about, I know you were saying Broadway Park, where are you thinking about the placement for this particular sign?
It would be at the corner, not where the pavilion is, the opposite side.
Where the basketball?
No. So if I'm coming straight from Broadway, it's that corner, well, yes, by the basketball side, but not close to it.
Where the grassy area?
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes, Madam Clerk. Yeah, I've been keeping up on this since you brought it, this June Woods. And, man, I've been through a lot. We made it a long way. Going through Civil War, War of 1812. That's a lot of history. I like history. I never knew nothing about this. People need to know. Being a black man to make it this far and plant the trees still there in the park.
Well, it's still, some trees are on Broadway,
So
so
up and down
yes.
tree line or something.
Yes, the street tree lines. And I was actually yesterday, I was at the place where his business would have been on.
Where?
I believe it's 12th and Oak Street by Benton Harbor, Mildred C. Wells.
Okay. That's some good research.
And just Dr. Carroll can even chime in. It's June Woods that we know about, but there are other pillars in the Black community
Right.
back in the 1800s that were vital in the success and the mecca of the flats. It was like our own little Black Wall Street that so often we don't hear about. And we have to shine a light. And by the city doing this, it's letting us know before you hear about the Morton story, you were here too during that time period.
Right. I think these people need to be, black people need to be recognized. We help build this city too.
The gentleman that came before that, I don't know if he was here, he was talking about one of the things that's been known as marking unmarked tombs of people who put placing crosses on unmarked tombs of veterans. So we said he's buried in Crystal Springs, and his tomb is unmarked.
Yes.
And pretty much probably the grave hasn't been taken care of, and there's nothing, market.
It's nothing there. I went there after Juneteenth to pay homage, and kudos to the city cemetery for even having records that far. We have a proximity where he would be placed at, but there is no tombstone, and it's just right there in that circle by the storage, the green bin. But it was, just imagine who else is buried out there that we have not studied about.
When I was conducting research on Mr. Woods, I mean, the evidence for a thriving Black community here in Benton Harbor in the 1860s and 70s is there in the historical record. And there are many people like Junius. He's the tip of an iceberg of people that were interesting, dynamic, movers and shakers, running businesses. The Wims family, Parks family. There was a half dozen other prominent Black families that were here that were civic leaders and involved in founding a community. So he's representative of them, but he's certainly by far, as Trent's pointing out, he's not the only one. That there's a much richer history here.
I like the idea. I think it's great for especially the kids to learn positive. It's a great idea.
Thank you.
This is the photo.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's several photos out there that we even have one on our Facebook page, courteous to, I guess I would say you, House of
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, the Heritage Museum over in St. Joseph has that original hanging on the wall. It was last time I was there a year and a half ago or something. But so they own the original of that. So
Why was it hanging on this? Is it to?
they own it. It's part of their collections. It was donated in the 1960s by a woman who knew Junius Woods when she was a very young child. And I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. At the time, she was living out in Water Vliet, African-American woman who had been living in the flats and knew him as a child, and met this guy. He came over for dinner and would tell stories about the War of 1812, things like that. And so she donated the photo to the Heritage Museum back in the 1960s. She's long since passed now. So that's where the original is. So we do have the original. It is around.
His impact was also just bigger than Benton Harbor. When you think about it, in the 1860s and 70s, you wouldn't think Black folks were even in Eau Claire or Bering Springs, but he had a lot to do with, we found out, with planting apple trees and peach trees and everything. So he played a vital role in this region.
That's where my family's from, so.
Yeah.
And that's why we.
You have questions coming from the audience?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
So, this is actually tremendous, and you actually answered part of my question. So, this sounds like a really good undertaking. Is it possible we would consider not just this park and that gentleman, there are other players, maybe some other parks? We got some parks that don't have an identity, the one on Pipestone and Brittany, one on Brittany, Colfax.
Well, I'm going to put her on Front Street, Ashley Heights. No, I'm sorry. We're actually this year for June, or next year for Juneteenth, our theme is honoring Black women. And from our understanding, a Black woman had a vital role in Benton Harbor with the flats and everything. And we are going to be trying to honor them. So yes, if the city's agreeing to the partnership with this, and if this is something you guys want to do, I'm fully, as long as I have breath and I'm still here in this community, excited to do what we need to do.
Okay, the word partnership called me. What type of partnership are
So
we talking?
he's just talking in general.
Okay.
He's just
Yeah,
talking in general.
it's nothing
Just
financial.
the ownership, just like for 9/11.
No,
I mean, I'm just saying, just like that type of memorial, and we're just partnershiping with the gentleman that wanted to do it, and we allowed it.
my partnership would be that the city would not come up with any finances or anything.
That's what I'm saying, yes,
We
same
would
thing.
come up with the finances to sign, the dedication, making sure it's an educational experience and the people know about this.
I want to touch base on something Commissioner Henderson just made mention of when you asked about the photo. And too often Benton Harbor has ownership of stuff and things that are treasures for our history that was played a big part of in Benton Harbor, yet we don't have it. It's somewhere else. But then it comes back to Benton Harbor for things like this. I would ask moving forward that we would get our big Mercy sign and put it in the Mercy District, so nobody have to come later on in life to try to get it. Let's do it ourselves. But of course, we should honor our people. We give homage to everybody else. I'd like to know more about the gentleman myself because my family has a long history in Benton Harbor. It's too bad it's about peaches and apples and the berry fields and stuff, but somebody had to do it, ironing, mass of clothes and all of that.
I mean, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
did you know that we had a Black population in the 1860s here? I mean, what did the school teach you about? They taught you about the Mortons and the first settlers and everything. You never knew
And I can attest to that. I grew up over here on Lincoln Street. There was a big old 5-story mansion that was right next door to us. It was a beautiful woman named Babe. White lady. She used to take us and walk us down Pipestone and teach us about the history. There was an ice cream parlor right there in the little corridor like the one on Empire. All bricks, small businesses in the community in walking distance. And we're trying to get back to that type of stuff. But there are homes still on Pipestone that had their homes in the back where their quarters was.
Who's quarters?
The slave quarters.
Oh, slave quarters. Oh,
No, servant quarters.
Oh.
Is there any
Call
other
it Bangor
questions
thing.
for, Mr. Bowles?
I want to make a comment, then a question. I think this is a wonderful project. We had other people come in. I remember when they wanted to put banners up for African Americans. Yeah, they put one, maybe two, and it disappeared. It never got deep like this. So I personally did the research because I knew that we had to be here. We couldn't just come in off the cattle ship. So I knew that there was someone here. But for you to have that information, we already know that St. Joe had the information. And they put it directly, but they only gave it in their projection, how they saw it. And so for us to give our projection and how we would look at it is great. And the more you share, because most of us just thought we were jungle bunnies. And you have information that would empower us, maybe not us big old people, but definitely our babies. And then my question to you, Mr. Bowman, are you gonna maintain this?
You know, as long as I stated previously, as long as I'm still a resident and the square miles of the 49022 are in Benton Harbor, my organization, and as long as I'm here, we will make sure that sign is upkept and has whatever necessary to have a long-lasting impact. In fact, the sign that we're looking at is looking to be a sign of longevity.
Will you be able to present that to the body one?
Yes, for final approval, yes. Our goal is to get everything approved with the city to start the process of seeking bids and everything for the sign, the tombstone, and then have it released by Juneteenth, the week of Juneteenth of next year.
Oh, so it's not gonna be bronze, something that stands to.
It's gonna be a stand that has the history.
Yeah.
Something
bronzy.
Yes, like a block,
Thank you,
a boulder, it would be a boulder type sign.
thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr. Bowles, before we- All right. We'll move to the full body.
And is that-
Sign,
What's
we need sign.
a resolution about naming the park?
So do I need to, or the city?
No, it still has to be voted on. It'll go before the full body, for the renaming. So we have to vote on,
And that would be within 2 weeks, correct?
in 2 weeks. So our next meeting is the 19th.
Okay, thank you so much.
Do we look to vote on it without,
So we're voting on the renaming. He's not, the sign, he'll bring that additional information back. Right now, the resolution is just for the renaming of the park to June Woods. That's what we're voting on Monday. That's what the resolution states. In fact, I'll read it. A resolution to rename Broadway Park to June Woods Park. That's what we'll be voting on the 19th.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
That passes.
Yes. How many times communication?
We have another member, to be, Brownfield. Mr. Childs.
It's my turn.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How's everybody? I saw it sitting there. I'm gonna check and see if it's working.
Go ahead, sir. You have any comments or?
No,
anything you
I'm
want
just here to
say?
be reinstated. I'm gonna do the
So
same
you
thing.
So you're enjoying serving on the Brownfield Authority?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any specific reason why you enjoy serving?
Because we are meeting the needs of the various people and organizations that applied for the Brownfield.
Do you have any questions?
It's been a pleasure, Mr. Childs, Reverend Childs. So, seen any progress since you've been on there? It's your first term on the Brownfield. 2 years? 2 years? It's 2-year term?
I don't know.
You don't know,
No.
just doing, just coming,
I don't know.
making the meetings?
Third year.
Third year?
Yeah, at my age now, I'm winding down on board, so y'all let me know how many more years I go. I think it's gonna be my last round.
As long as you got a passion for the city, want to do something, want to serve, want to volunteer your time, 3 years?
I'm still trying
You
to
got
find
3
that.
more years in you?
Yeah, that's about it. 70 when I get 70.
Lord, 7?
First.
Count yourself out.
When I get 70, that's when I'm gonna be cutting back on a lot of stuff.
The city needs you right now. So
Yeah, I know. I don't think so.
appreciate what you still want to be here, do something.
Don't get tired of fighting.
Everybody got to put a little something in.
Oh, right now, I'm just trying to hold down my block, the 1100 block.
Seems like y'all have a good Brownfield team and doing a lot. So thank you for wanting to be, stay on there and serve.
Yes, sir.
Consensus to move this appointment forward.
Miss, Pastor Childs, you still live in the city of Benton Harbor?
Since February of 1983.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Call me back. I'm in a meeting right now.
We'll give consensus to move this appointment forward. Mr. Charles, we're done. You can take your call.
Call me back. I'm in a meeting right now. I'll get back with you.
You can call, you can.
I have a question to ask Reverend Child.
I hope I can answer it.
I'm sure you can.
Yes, sir.
With the history of the Brownfield, and I remember sitting right here in this chamber, right in that spot right there, when Jeff Knowles came and asked us to open our Brownfield back up. And we did. Within 30 days, we reestablished our Brownfield. And at that time, I was able to get on that Brownfield and go to different events, training events. And I saw all the opportunities and all the opportunities that Brownfield gives a municipality to do for the people. So once they took me off the board, I still followed it. I watched with Commissioner Adams struggled to get anything done in the Brownfield
For the people.
for the people. So I'm asking you, sir, that if it's just your last go round, make it a good one for the people.
I'm trying my
Because
best.
there's some jobs and some training and a whole lot of other things that could happen out of the Brownfield. And the Brownfield do capture a lot of tax dollars that could go into the general fund for us to do something, but Brownfield have the authority to help the people. So I pray and that you take care of it on your last go round.
I really appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I will definitely be focusing in on those issues that you just brought forth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, that is it. We will give consensus to move it forward, and it'll be voted on the 19th at the next city council meeting.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
I can go now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the commission policies and procedures. Did any commissioner make any updates to this policy and procedure, this working document that's submitted? Any changes you want to see need to be submitted to the clerk?
No, I didn't submit it to the clerk because every weekend my email gets turned off. And I'm having a problem to even, that's the time that I have to address these, but, so I haven't been able to do anything.
Do you have a hard copy?
But I tell you what, we could go back, and I asked the clerk, our clerk to go back. We have had meeting after meeting to change some of these policies and procedures. And one of them was done in 2000. We actually had a resolution, call ourselves trying, I wasn't on the board then, or was I? Maybe I was. But anyway, we wanted to fix the problem, and we voted on it. Got a unanimous decision on it, law. And because clerk did not publish it in the paper, it was null and void. So we can start with that one. That would be one problem solved. Because we studied a long time as to how to solve the problem. And the problem is even worse now than it was then.
So I would say submit that one because there's changes that have been made to the new policies and procedures. I'm just waiting on commissioners
I
to
got
actually
I
make
got you.
changes, submit them to her.
Well,
Because I
that
made changes to the policies. Now we're waiting on every commissioner to submit any changes that they want to see, so we can have this document put out before the board. That's what we're waiting on. I've already made changes, and we've sent. She's highlighted any changes that needed to be changed. So
Well,
we just need to
I
submit
understand
them.
that.
Oh, we
I
don't,
understand that, but I'm asking her through the chair.
The policies and procedures.
Oh, we're
and
there
electronic- They've been out.
I know
It's-
that, I'm
it's a rolling-
saying, we're still going over them though.
So it's, for any commissioner to make any changes or
Right, right,
additions. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So just any changes.
Well, I'm asking you asking the Madam Clerk through the chair, if that ordinance, and I think she knows exactly which one I'm talking about. No, I'll give you the information on it.
Just give it to her with
And
the
then-
changes.
Because of whatever the problem was, it didn't get put in the paper, that shouldn't, we should revisit it.
Yeah,
Well,
submit
yeah.
it, yeah, submit
The
it to
one
her.
that Mayor Yarbrough.
Do you have any changes, Commissioner? All of the changes are in a different color and some of
What
them
better
are,
time
you
than
see the
remember
changes,
of
you'll have
Mayor
to strike
Yarbrough.
through of what's been added or what's been subtracted. The next item on the agenda is the, and this will be a rolling document, is the landlord policies. And we have submitted, no, we're waiting on,
Okay,
for the landlord policies, because there's some changes that need to happen.
okay, may I,
Yes,
Madam
yes,
Chair?
ma'am.
While we're looking at landlord policy and that type of thing, can we also look at, I'm reflecting on an email that we got earlier, and I couldn't figure out why the county of Darien was moving so fast to tear down a historical building like the OIC. There used to be a nun's, whatever they called it back in the heyday. And the building next to me, these buildings were built then with concrete floors like this old one down here, downtown. Same type of stuff and structure that can be redone. You can rehab anything to make it be what you want it to be. Old properties that are just sitting, mainly houses, I think that it's time that the legislative committee put forth something to let these people know that the city of Benton Harbor is going to take ownership in doing something with it if nothing in a certain amount of time does not happen.
That exists.
Does it?
That
Okay, so it just needs to be enforced.
It's being enforced.
No, it's not. It couldn't possibly be.
I've had this conversation with.
There's too many abandoned,
Well, no,
old.
what I'm saying is
Yeah.
there is a process because at first there wasn't necessarily anything
Can you forward it to me, please?
in place. And so, Inspector, Bruce, the attorney and, the chief, in my conversations with them around this week, I hate that he left, so he could have, even talked about this. a
I'm
little
talking about houses, houses and
There
buildings
is-
and
there
things
is-
that have set for
there is
almost 20 years or more
there is a
that's
process.
not even being utilized.
There is a process.
There is homes that have set for 10.
There is
But
a
we
process.
definitely need to put more on the homes that have been burnt. And the landlord just holding on to them, thinking that he could possibly sneak another tenant back in later on after they put Band-Aids on it. That's out.
City manager, do you want to speak to, I hate the chief left, that, Iris wasn't there. You want to speak to that particular issue, because specifically with the burnt houses, with the insurance piece that happens, that the city will tear it down and get reimbursed, it's a whole
I know
process.
that, I know all that. Yeah.
The burn houses, we have them on a schedule to bring them down. There's about 50 of them.
And that's
Do you have
whether,
a time frame that it might happen? I got one sitting right next to me.
okay, would a policy state something to the effect of if that homeowner
It's already a
house caught
policy.
fire
In fact-
and there was a loss of life and they didn't have insurance, they did immediately, without any discussion, to be torn down. Because that over there on Bellevue is sad and sickening to even be still standing. And we got the money to tear it down. You shouldn't be allowed to put a Band-Aid on it and try to put other humans in it.
So it has to be a true process. I don't think you'd be able to.
Well, I'm saying we need to put a true process in place.
Well, she's saying we have one. You wouldn't be able to just the next day to, take someone's property and tear it down. But
I'm
maybe
not talking about take.
could we bring it up next?
Yeah, I'll have.
Further discussion,
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe we could talk about it. If
Yeah.
we could bring it up in the next meeting and
Yeah.
have the policy.
yeah. Spend some time.
Yeah, because in my conversation with them, because they will run into a lot of issues. And so as they created something, because there was not necessarily something created, they had to create it. But then you still have to,
They who?
you can't just,
Legislation,
no, I'm saying,
I mean, but working with code enforcement.
working with
Right,
code
right.
enforcement, because there wasn't something, they had to create something. You just can't tear down somebody's property.
But
So they had to create, How
there
many-
are things in other communities that are happening.
and they
And
take,
it takes the attorney, this legislative body, as well as code enforcement working together.
and we have been, I'm telling
Okay,
you, this is
that's, I'm
something
just
that
saying though, that,
we've been
yeah.
talking about, and with that process that they've created, because there
But
wasn't
by
one
now,
there.
we should have an idea, a thought or something to go off of.
And
Where we're headed.
what I'll do is I'll invite him, the reason why it's still on there is because it's still been a working,
Yeah.
Process. And so
Yeah.
the reason why it's on there, once they
Like our
finish looking,
policies
because
and
we
procedures.
submitted a, policy to them that we created, and we submitted it to.
Who is we?
The legislative committee, so
Okay.
myself, what's his name,
Okay,
Stephen
I
Moore,
get you.
who sits on there, we submitted a policy that they were looking at to adjust and fix it for the city, for landlords. And so they were taking information from other municipalities and trying to, because you just can't apply something from another, city to us, you have to make it fit, Benton Harbor, so that's what they've been working on. The
Okay,
last conversation I had with Mr. Bruce.
okay, last thing though. Was it, that one house, for instance,
On Bill.
was it registered with the city as a rental? See, that's in violation already. And when people don't follow those type of things, this is why constant conversation with the legislators being this body, bring those things up.
It has to be
and-
with the people who do the day-to-day
Yeah,
work. Like,
Yeah,
I can submit plans and ideas,
but it has
because
to
we
be
don't
within the
do-
realm of the law, I
yeah, but
understand
we don't
that.
do day-to-day operations. And
Right.
so, we still just can't tear down some properties. We can't just go in if we don't have anything written. So some stuff have to be,
Yeah,
I don't want to say
Iron out.
grandfathered or whatever.
mean,
You have to give
fair.
people opportunities. So,
fair, yeah.
in my last conversation
I'm
with him.
just trying to take.
But I'll talk
it.
with Mr. Bruce, and if you want to,
Yeah.
ask him specifically about that house,
That's code enforcement, right?
code enforcement.
Okay, so he takes care of all of that type of stuff, cause it's the most of, okay.
And I will write it down, Commissioner Adams, because he is very responsive.
Yeah,
Like, I've called him about a number of things, like
Yeah, yeah.
the people keep putting the grave,
Yeah.
the stuff on that property. The other property, I've talked to him about that, the memorials on other people's
No,
properties and stuff like that.
We need to get together and talk to that family and try to make some type of resolve, because you couldn't have it on my property.
And I agree.
And the chips gonna have to just fall where they may. I'm just saying. But this man has tried this, his property, he cuts around it. City management has promised to do something about it time and time again. At least bring the family in, let's talk to them or something. Cause that's just unacceptable. That didn't happen over there where they put a little shrine. I mean, my heart aches and breaks for them. I had to watch 6 children come out of a house down the street from there when I was just 17 years old, just down the street in plastic
I
bags.
think, Commissioner Adams, those kids were my students. I saw them on a regular basis, so they tour of our school when those kids passed.
Okay.
Yeah, so I totally understand. They were my students.
Madam Chair, is there a date that we might look at getting this problem solved? And how long can we work on it? Or are we, I know they're doing something, you gave them a template, sound like, and they are going to, so is there a date?
I will invite Mr. Bruce and his team to the next meeting to have a conversation about it.
Thank you.
Rent stabilization is the next item. And I think this was something that
Madam Chair, I want to thank you for putting this back on the agenda. I wasn't here at this one last meeting, and they just kind of said, no, we don't want to talk about it. And I was on YouTube hoping that I could sit a comment, yeah, we do want to talk about it, but no comment was on, so I'm glad. Thank you for putting it back on. It has, since in the last 6 months, eviction has been a great, great problem all over the country. It's not just going to be a Benton Harbor problem. It's happening all over the country. And the most victim of them is women, and African American women and brown women are just being hit and hammered. I probably heard 5 or 6 people said their rent went up here in the community. Some said that they had to leave, and some said they're gonna find some way to pay that extra $200. So, one guy in my neighborhood, in my block, landlord came and told him that she wanted to move into the house. It's a 1-bedroom. The bedroom is about the size of that corner over there. And the woman moved in, and she's fixing it up to sell it. But the only way that she could honestly get him out was tell him she was gonna move in. So when you see that kind of greed happening from just one little incident, you'll see more of that. And some of the houses I'm seeing that are being rehabbed, we need houses, and the houses are sitting there rehabbed. I get texts all the time. We got a 4-bedroom, we got a 2-bedroom. So we need to find some way to stop the gentrification. I've heard some commissioners say gentrification, you can't stop it. But I am a person that can testify, if it can't be stopped, it can be slowed down so we can get on.
So I have a question, before we, I think, Ms. Warren has one as well. I own property, and I have a tenant in my property who's not paying rent. So you propose that we leave people in the properties that's not paying rent?
I'm
And I'm
proposing.
asking a question.
No, I'm
because
trying to
both
give
ends
you
of that.
understanding so you won't put that,
No, I
that
understand that.
smooth peanut butter stuff on it.
No,
I'm trying to give you an answer.
Hold on. But I guess what I'm saying, as a property owner, you cannot tell me what to do with my property.
You're not listening to me,
Or
because
if I have-
you're in the mode of being a property owner. I'm in the mode of being
I've been
elected
both.
official
I've
for
been both.
a 80 90% black community.
I understand.
So I'm not talking about the landlord. And I'm only looking into my people's interests.
So
Now, wait a minute, I'm gonna answer your question.
Okay.
Because, no, we're in a pandemic now. That's the reason why that's going on. Okay, we're in a pandemic.
Disagree. Two people have a job and they're just not paying rent, but they showing up at the parties.
Oh,
shouting
what?
tax.
How do you,
So,
legally,
I disagree
no,
with you.
legally, you have a option to go to Barron County Courthouse and take legal action. But this is a pandemic. I don't know if they're let you guys do that or not.
It's not a pandemic though right now.
But
Please, you sounding like the mayor. I can't get a word in because you got something to say.
I'm hearing what you're saying.
But you got a word to say every time I open my mouth,
but
Chair.
can we stay on point?
Yeah, we need to stay on.
I
on
can't
topic.
because she
Go
keeps
ahead.
interrupting
And
me.
then Ms. Warren has a
Okay,
comment.
okay.
So do I.
If the greed of America is allowing people to come in and buy these houses up and rent them at the price, it's gonna ace out our people because we're truly, the census said, we're a little over $9,000 average household a year. That's what the census said. So I'm just going by it. So we need to find some way to protect our people. Now, what you're saying, you have an avenue. Any landlord have an avenue to get out, what they call them, squatters, or whatever they call them. You have an avenue. And you should use it. But what happens when you come to that lady who has a house full of kids and you tell her that you gotta have $200 more a month? Now she has to move to another facility or come up with $200 extra a month. There's plenty of other people, educated people, that are gonna come here. They're coming now, moving in. So if they can afford $800 and she can't but afford but $500, what do you think the landlord's gonna do?
Our people have a priority problem.
So
I'm sorry.
now, if I answered your question about your being a landlord and what your authority is and how you can handle your property, ma'am, you have a question?
Yeah, so I try to look at every situation fairly. In this situation, how I'm looking at it, you have stated some points. What I feel like the answer is not necessarily the avenue you're saying about the greedy landlord, because, you know, we live in America and it's like we have a fair market value. So to tell a person you can't charge fair market value is unrealistic. However, how the problem should be solved, or what we should look into, in my opinion, is some kind of program. So for example, if you are a single mom and you are working and maybe your rent is $500 and now the market value has become $700, to tell a person they can't get market value, I don't think that's necessarily gonna fly. But what program is out there to help that single parent and say, hey, I can't pay $700. What program is out there to help me? So what I'm saying is, what about a program to help the person versus, to me, that sounds more logical than for me to make a person who owns something. You know, it just seems like it's almost impossible for me to make person A who owns a property, who also, we don't know their situation. They could have an adjustable rate mortgage. We don't know their situation. They might be struggling to pay the mortgage. The rent man didn't even cover the mortgage. So it's so many avenues behind the scenes that we don't know. So to tell a person that you can't get fair market value does not seem like the right thing to go into. It seems more logical to me to see if this is a huge problem, it's happening due to the pandemic or whatever reason. It may just be happening because maybe the jobs are paying too low. I don't know. But what can we do to get help? Because fair market value is fair market value, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so.
And there was a program for the last 2 years, and I had the opportunity to serve to help people I mean, they were paying landlords 10,000, 13. People had literally stopped paying their rent.
Exactly.
And so now some of those same people are left in homes because somebody was paying them because they were not working, but things are changing. So I agree, maybe some kind of program to help meet the difference. But that's what a lot of the low-income housing solutions that we have in the community does. And I know people who move from one to the other or have got put out for not even paying the subsidized amount of housing.
And
So, I mean, there are solutions. Section 8 is one of those solutions. There are solutions.
You know, come on, you're sitting up there telling me that Section 8 is a solution.
No, I'm
There
saying-
is no solution. That's why we're trying to address the problem.
I'm saying-
Okay.
There is no one to help.
so what's
So
Other
you know-
communities
So you
that
say
have,
Section 8 is not a solution? What do you know?
no,
about
because Section 8 makes them move out of Barron County. Nobody's using
No,
that
that's,
section.
that's actually, there are people who have Section 8 vouchers, and you have to find a landlord who accepts Section 8 vouchers.
And
There
bring
you
it
go.
up. Okay, but
And
landlords
There
don't
you
have
go.
to.
Then come on, bring
There
the
are a
problem.
number-
Let's talk about the
There are
problem.
a number of landlords who do accept
And some just don't and won't.
and some
And that's
have.
their
One of the
business.
key things on why they won't, not because they don't want to, because it guarantees your rent, because they don't want to get the property up to code.
Okay, and you know why? Another,
So that's usually the issue.
A lot
It
of
doesn't
times-
elate the fact that the people are suffering. You can bring all that brick and mortar stuff in here, but the people are suffering.
okay, so
So
you
you
know
can
what I
bring, you can
got?
talk about all that stuff you want,
You know
or
what I
who
got?
gonna help. No one is helping in America.
You know what I got?
This-
No, that I disagree. I
Commissioner-
want,
Commissioner
Come on,
Adams,
bring
Commissioner Adams,
some,
go
bring
ahead.
some, bring some.
I want you to put your signature and
Bring
everybody else's on this Breathe Act for reparations on every level. So, because see, there's some fighting going on, and you fighting in the wrong place. Okay, and I'm gonna just leave that there, but I gotta
Well,
say
tell them to
this.
bring it on and quit
I gotta
playing,
say
because we
this, no,
still
you have
suffering.
to, you,
We still suffering.
okay, I'm
People
not gonna,
still
I'm
getting
not gonna
put
have
out.
that fight right here because it's bigger than me and you.
You bring it on.
I'm at a point, and I didn't realize, and I know that we have a homeless issue. And it's because, and it's more predominantly Black communities and people of color because we have been redlined out of the American life that has turned into a nightmare. Now, we all know that. That's a fact.
No, we don't all.
Okay,
know
so let me finish. I got a chance to see for myself though, just this year. If you allow me to move in your house and I'm paying you $600 a month, cheesing like I can handle it with these little babies. Okay, we're in now. Oh, we good. We got out of that other place. That was actually much cheaper. So, time goes on, the stool won't stop up. Well, what you like the kids put in? Okay, I'm gonna pay to have that. Okay, another month. The stool, you know, okay, I'm gonna pay okay, this can't keep happening though, because at some point, okay, and to go beyond that, who protects landlords that endure some stuff that I just incurred and I couldn't believe it? I got video footage that I would be ashamed to show the world, unless I necessarily have to. You stop paying rent. The pump in the home needs electricity to keep water from settling in the basement. The electricity is off for months because you neglected to pay the bill. And then I have to have the water turned off until you pay your money to get the electricity turned back on. And then you neglected to put the water bill in your name. That falls on the landlord. A poor person trying to generate them an income with a rental piece of property.
They dogs. I admit.
Okay, and then you tore up the house. Now see, a real dirty person could turn you in. And you would never get anything again. I admit we got a serious problem. And some of it is right up here. And some of it is just being responsible and actually wanting something. You can't You can take me to the lake with a pole. You can't make me fish.
But I agree, I mean, with the conversations that we're having, this is what, some of the issues are, and I don't know, there are a lot of programs helping people pay rent.
Well, tell me,
There are a lot of places that people can go to get assistance.
tell me where they are, please, so I can tell the people that.
I help people, so I know, that's part of, that's.
Can you
that's
tell
part of my
me
job.
so I can
And
help?
then you can have this conversation, I can give you a whole
We
list.
do that, that'd be
People
good.
that's helping people pay rent, and some people go from organization to organization.
It's a
to
game
organization.
for them. They've been playing this, I got some cousins, they play it so much, they can't even get a house in Benton Harbor, they got to go to some other community. They played the game until they got blacklisted.
So there's a lot of organizations helping people.
And they do the same thing with the housing commission, but how do we stop? Real people that want something and need to come up, don't have the boots to pull up themselves, but they still trying. That mother that's going to Walmart and working 4 or 5 hours and going to another job that's working 4 or 5. How do we, if she don't, not in subsidized house, put in a private owner's home? And he figures the market values have gone up because they built 80 new units over here, and they want to build some more new units down here, and everything is going up. How do we save those people?
Job training. Because if you don't give them job training and help a person get stability in their lives to get up and go to a functioning job on a daily basis to earn a paycheck that will pay them the living wage to be able to pay rent and buy food and pay their bills.
The first thing I would do is social services. I would see if they could give
How
me
many
any
times
kind-
you been to social service?
Oh, I'm gone.
It's not about
Well,
me.
then it don't work. So
No,
you
what
can't
I'm
tell me
saying
it don't work.
Can
It's
they
social
give
service.
them some kind of like list? Like I know sometimes Catholic churches help with
Please.
bills. They do.
They don't work. How many times you been? That's what I'm talking about. They don't work.
So Commissioner, I hear what you're saying.
Okay, let me ask you this, will you please?
I mean,
Let's entertain this one more time and ask our attorney. He's not here, but ask our attorney to look at it. There's other communities all over the United States have rent stabilization. New York has it, LA has it, it's a lot of them, whatever, one of them, they all have it. Please, let's just do a little research legally. And all of these social things that you want to talk about, we would talk about.
I don't know. We talked about this last week. I don't know if you were here.
No, we didn't,
Well,
because I wasn't here. I heard,
Okay,
I
so
watched
one
the
of the-
YouTube.
one of the things I had mentioned last month when this topic came up is, you're right, it's very common in like New York City. And what they do is they look at it, it's a huge apartment building, it might be 100+ units. And they look at that for rent stabilization. What I commented was, what I had not heard of is individual homeowners. You know what I mean? Like I've heard of a huge unit of like if you own 100 units. I've heard of that. I had not heard of like if just say I'm a regular person and I own 2 homes. I live in one and I rent one out. I had not heard of it being like individual people. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, Los Angeles has one.
They have it.
Yeah.
It just seems like it would be a lot
It
to
would- it
maintain
is a
and
lot.
manage.
It
because
is a
you're
lot,
managing me,
but-
you're managing her. You're managing like a million different people who own 1 or 2. Now, if you had one person, they owned 100 houses, but you.
Well, that's what's happening now. Who's buying up the houses right now? I got 15 calls about my
Have you
house.
looked up who own those houses?
Beg your pardon?
Have you looked up who owns some of those houses?
Yes, I do. I know exactly
I know
who.
a couple
And when I
of them.
knock on the door and ask them, well, who owns this and what are you doing here? They said, we don't speak English. And I bring my phone out and I say.
No, I'm saying.
But yes, I
They're
do
on
know.
the,
I see it.
Yeah, the water bills, you can see, BSNA, you put the address in there and it comes up.
I see it.
But here's
And
my
the question,
suggestion,
our great old commissioner over there, he's doing some research where we will all know the truth and have some. If you don't have the truth, you can't make a good decision.
So here's my call out. If you're saying people are buying up all the houses, that's the key problem. We should be buying our houses. With 2 million of us that's renting, we should be doing more to educate, and I have done it. You know,
I know
you
it.
know I've
I
done
know
it.
it.
So that's the problem. We need to be educating people to say,
Right.
stop renting. If he can buy for 3,000 houses, you buy one and slowly but surely get things fixed. Nobody has to have $1 million today. You can get a few things fixed over time, hire a handyman. I mean, it's workable, it's possible.
True. And there's been programs after programs after programs that they come in here. The city even gave first-time home buyers money. There was programs to teach them how to financial and do all sorts of things.
Ms. Booker's doing
But
what I think that's
when-
homeowners.
When they bring this money in 2012, $14 million. And we went to rehab in our community. But the second half of NSP was to take care of the homeowners. That money disappeared. When they do gentrification, that's the kind of stuff that happens to us.
How do it disappear?
It didn't disappear. It disappeared from the criteria of helping the homeowners. It shifted the money to another. So when you see them giving preference to certain people on the other side of Main Street, and it's happening right in our face, slapping us just as nice, but I'm gonna give y'all high five, Wi-Fi over here. We finna put a new complex over here. We just got a $3.5 million grant. We're gonna put some new houses over here. They're doing it and we're taking it without Vaseline. So we have to do something. We have to do something. We cannot just sit back and do nothing.
Who's approving the money shift? Is that the commission? Did you all vote on it?
Yes, we did.
So why then?
Because if you got 3 commissioners that can't read and the other 4 can't understand what they read, we do things to ourselves. Look it up. Ask her, look it up. NSP. NPS. Was it NPS? Yes. NPS. Look it up. That's what made me hate it. I saw that.
Yeah.
Can we get the attorney to put his little info in?
City manager, about, rent stabilization, just, doing some checks to see if that's something that, could work.
Okay. Check.
The attorney,
This-
you're gonna ask the attorney to check on it?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Big
That's what he,
time?
that's what he said.
Oh, I couldn't hear him, I'm sorry. Didn't hear him. I could hear.
No, and the last, the last one on the, next agenda, Tiffany. Tiffany, the last item, put that on the next agenda. And is there anything else, any more comments or questions? This is it, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming out.
Put on the agenda, next time we're gonna work on our code of ethics.
Huh?
Work on our code of ethics.
You wanna work?